In general, it's really hard to actually draw any single insight from data, and people spend ages and a lot of effort on creating different dashboards, and then they look for trends and patterns. But one of our colleagues always says information flows through an organization upwards in sentences, not really in graphs. So you kind of just need like the punchline before you get someone to really seriously look at data. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Deep Learning with PolyAI. I'm here in New York with Damian, this time in person. Welcome to another episode.
Thanks, Nikola. Thanks for having me. It's good to have you in person.
Yeah.
In our New York office, in our improvised New York studio. So.
Absolutely. Damian and I just moved 5 different lights and realized that our sound insulation is not as good as we thought it was. So we hope this turns out okay. But we have something much more exciting than our acoustics here to talk about. Last time we recorded the episode, we talked a bit about kind of the different agents we have and the different agentic frameworks that operate over our agents. God, how many times can I say the word agent in a single sentence? But one that we're really excited about and we kind of committed to demoing this time is Smart Analyst.
Yeah.
Like the tool that we use and that we think is a gateway for mere mortals, which is pretty much everyone in the contact center and elsewhere, to be able to actually ask questions of the data set, draw insights, and operate on the whole kind of like customer service estate. So what is Smart Analyst?
Yeah, so I mean, we talked a little bit about Smart Analyst in our last podcast where we went through our QA agent concept, our supervisor agent concept, and really the idea that we wanted today was to kind of show what we were talking about, which is what's the functionality that's part of Agent Studio that allows our customers to use natural language to get deep insights into their data. So we're going to spend some time kind of going through Smart Analyst. So I brought up Smart Analyst for one of our agent projects. And you can come in here into Agent Studio and you see right off the bat, you have a natural language framework for querying any information. And we have kind of suggested queries, which you can see. Why are people calling your agent? What are the most, recent successful calls? But it really is this idea of a flexible experience for getting insight into your data. Now, we talked a little bit about this in our last podcast, that trying to get trends out of your data, out of the call center, takes time.
Yeah.
And the whole idea behind Smart Analyst was to make that something that doesn't take time. So
yeah, I mean, just in general, it's really hard to actually draw any single insight from data, and people spend ages and a lot of effort on creating different dashboards, and then they look for trends and patterns. But one of our colleagues always says, information flows through an organization upwards in sentences, not really in graphs. So you kind of just need like the punchline before you get someone to really seriously look at data. So
and I mean that point, it resonates. So let's say we're here, we want to get some insights into what's going on with our customers calling the agent. So we're going to say, what are the top reasons for customers calling our agent? We're going to let our PolyAI logo, which is thinking based on the query we just gave it. But yeah, I mean, this is
and what's happening behind the scenes is a reasoning framework going around over the data, calling different queries, deciding what it does. We plan to reveal a bit more of the trace of what it's doing, but for now, we've made it fast enough that you don't really have to.
Exactly. And so just now we made a query, what were the top call reasons, and we got a list of the top call reasons, including identifying what the most recent what the top call reason is. And as Nikola mentioned, behind the scenes, this becomes a portal to go into the unstructured conversation data. So where you normally would use a BI tool to go through structured data, now you've dug into unstructured data and you've identified that the top call reason is like room reservation. So let's say, for example, we've done this query, we're continuing to discuss with
And I mean, just maybe like to contrast, like in most of these, whether it's done with AI or not, you kind of have people building an ontology of the call types, and then you have like a human at the end choosing what the call type is. And God forbid they don't understand the ontology, or that you can select two, not a single one. And in practice, what humans really end up doing is just clicking the top call reason, because you can't verify that it's right or not. Well, you could, but if you do it, it kind of defeats the purpose. So most people don't. They're not comped on how accurate this is, because again, it would be hard to establish, what the correct answer is automatically. If you could do it automatically, you wouldn't be asking humans to do it.
Exactly.
So this is something that's a real pain point across many of the contact centers that we've worked with.
Yeah, and I think one of the things to note here is the way that Smart Analyst is working is it's trying to add insight on top of, so like you've queried, for example, the top call reasons, and you get a list of the top call reasons, but you also get key patterns observed, you get areas you can investigate further. We've tuned the Smart Analyst to provide value on top of what you've just queried at face value. And that's something that you don't just get from a standard BI tool. So let's say, for example, we want to dig into the top call reasons, and we said, can you provide example calls for the top, for we'll say it by name, for room reservations. And so the idea here is, how can the Smart Analyst help you drill into specific calls? Like we just got top level call trends from the last query. Now we want to dig into specific calls. So we've asked that question, and now we get examples. Successful call booking with a certain type of reason. And you could see over here, and I'm just not for the sake of this demo, you get a conversation ID example that you could then pop out, click, and then you've now used Smart Analyst to identify a specific call that you want to dig into. And we've had our customers use this for all types of things, whether it's finding a great example call, whether you want to find a challenging call that might be.
This is a viral feature, because basically like the usual thing that people do is they'll have some filters based on either automatically or manually tagged things, and then they'll filter and they'll go through call by call, whereas, this is an example of a call, but you could ask for a successful booking with, in a very long conversation, or with a complex back and forth, and it will just find it, you click a link and you go through. And that's, like looking, I think I've heard a lot of our people refer to it as kind of like the needle in a haystack kind of problem. Like, you have a magnet here, and it's like, poof, needle out.
Yeah, and I'm literally just talking with our customers about this. We've had functionality, which you can see in our platform and our left nav, like our conversations capability to use metrics and idea, but all of that starts to become something that takes a little bit of time. It still has value, but this now takes even less time to find the things that you're looking for. So let's say, for example, I've gone through this, I get an idea of what conversations I want to review, and I want to get some data that I could transfer to other areas of my organization. So let's say, for example, I want to query, can you provide a chart on containment rate for the last 7 days? And I will.
You don't even have to fix it, right? If you think about it.
You don't, but I'm going to do it in the interest of fixing it. So, can you provide a chart on containment rate for the last 7 days? Smart Analyst would probably have interpreted my spelling mistake and processed it just as it should.
You just don't want it there for posterity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So in this case, now it's querying the structured data behind the scenes. So you now have a daily containment rate chart, which you have the ability to expand, potentially embed into a presentation, and you're now using this to query the structured data that that you've already used as a customer of ours, things like conversation review to dig into some of our other things like our dashboards and our homepage. But in the event that you have a specific data point that you want to bring into an email, a deck, or some other reporting mechanism, and then you're also going to get key insights, because once again, as I mentioned,
can you ask questions about this?
Sure. We could say like, let us dig into, key performance trends, like, give me some, expanded key performance trends. And let's see how it goes. And we'll let Smart Analysts decide what key performance trends we want to look into. But it really is the idea that this is an agent that's tuned to give you what you're looking for and provide additional insight, provide additional areas where you want to dig in deeper. And then it becomes just expanded conversation.
What it can actually index over? Is it kind of static things, or like you've asked about, I don't know, average handling time? Would that work?
Yeah. So, one of the things that the way that we've tuned this is it has access to our database of metrics, a relational database behind call trends and call data, and then also, as you've noticed from some of the other things that we've queried, and Smart Analyst is thinking about this, but it also has access to the unstructured data and conversation data. And so it's tuned to go back and tie both the structured data we have around your agent performance with the unstructured data that you have around your agent transcripts. While Smart Analyst digests this key performance trends.
Yeah. So, I mean, in general, how well do LLMs and the reasoning models deal with relational data?
I think ultimately it's been quite well tuned in a sense that, based on the way we've set up our relational databases and how it's, set up ideally for, and you can see now as the last 7 days of key performance trends have come in, we've set up our call duration, customer behavior patterns, and then it expanded on some of the additional data you saw from the prior query on AI efficiency metrics, operational insights. Like I gave the Smart Analyst a very broad query and it returned very broad results and really dug into a lot of the relational data. But the point I was going to make is we've tuned our database to capture relational data metrics, things like average handle time, things like containment rate, things like metrics that are specific to our customers, from hospitality to financial services and all different. We've tuned that to be valuable to the call center and valuable to call center analysts. What then becomes the area where something like this adds even more value is non-structured data. Just stuff that's coming in from customers that's going off script.
And you can go like, hey, what is the weirdest call you found?
Right.
Like, what would that give us?
Let's see.
I swear this is not staged. It's just. And these are the kind of questions that people, like I've seen a lot of our customers ask these because it's the kind of thing that they might just ask human colleagues. It's like, hey, what's like something today that took you by surprise, or
it also
surprised me.
It also gets you thinking too, right? So the point is we have, there we go. So we have like weird, someone might have been playing games with the agent,
This is cool. So the caller repeatedly mimicked everything. Okay.
Yeah. And then we had like, the mysterious name, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the point is, this gets you thinking as a call center analyst using Smart Analyst by having that open, query conversation with your data and your transcripts. You start thinking about things that you actually would want to dig into on a
things that you maybe didn't
basis.
think about, right? And then you go and you change the knowledge base, and then
I think that's something that sets us apart in a sense that we are continuing to build out query logic, build out functionality. Our customers are constantly coming to us now with feedback using this tool for things they'd want to see enhanced in the platform. And it starts to become a way that you have a dialogue with your data and think about how you want to see your data. And that's super powerful.
I mean, if you think about like agents and these things, right? You genuinely, and I think, we're planning to do this. What's always been difficult in maintaining a voice agent was you need to listen to the calls and then kind of figure out, hey, well, what do I not know? And then you go and you ask the client, then you turn that into whatever representation of the agent, you redeploy, then you look for more of those. Whereas really right now, what you could do with these is like, hey, suggest 3 questions I need to find out from the business that would make these calls better, or these like particular things improve. And then once you do, you could just feed it there. And the next stage, of course, is this updating everything in the knowledge bases, prompts, and different things to just kind of iterate. And then over time, this can be done without any human involvement. Now, of course, whether that would work well, and could you have an unforeseen thing happening over time? Absolutely. But I think that happens with humans as well.
Yeah, I mean, of course. And one of the things that we'll note, I mean, we talked a little bit in the prior podcast about, the QA agent. This is our analyst agent. One thing that our customers have told us more and more is turning some of these queries and some of these results into things that work with our agent analysis function. So that's come up often because there might be a repeatable query that you want to go back. I'm not going to spend time in this particular episode digging into that because we've already gone through quite a bit about Smart Analyst. But the point is you like dig into your data, find a repeatable pattern that you want to look at, and you now have the ability to take that, make it into a repeatable like QA tool within our platform. And it all comes out of having that open dialogue with your data that you have in Smart Analyst.
And it's so easy to start. I think, like there's a world in which you start listening and then you kind of like, and I remember we've done this many a time and kind of like working on different projects, years ago, where you start defining a taxonomy, right? Yeah. And I remember a big client of ours had a set of issues, and I think we spent 2 days going through the calls, and it was 3 of us. And we set up this kind of like taxonomy, which we thought was pretty clear. Like, this is a call about that. This happened here, but not this and this. And when we looked at our inter-annotator agreement over what we thought the problem was, or whether we thought the call was good or not, etc., it was really, really all over the place. Now, I think if you followed any single one of our things, you would kind of get clusters of things that were fairly similar and pointed out the next problems. But the features that we have used to kind of like cluster it were different. We were calling things different names. We were disagreeing about, whether something is a policy design issue or an understanding issue, right? But it pointed to the same problems, right? So if you get started, if you use the output of the analysis from any one of the 3 of us, you would have kind of clustered it into some examples like this, and you would not spend 3 days doing it to begin with, which is really powerful because honestly, and this we saw with many clients before, with tools that were in this self-explanatory, they would just not do it. Yeah, right. And then you get these static projects, which over time just have this drift from the business, because the business changes gradually over time, right? Like truckers asking about this problem, that thing might change if something in the parking lot changes. A static voice assistant exists in a non-static world, and it's like really difficult for it to then notice that a part of its performance is no longer congruent with like the business need. And in the contact center, this would be dealt with, but shared files and folders where someone would go and just update it once they see that it's no longer correct. But with a voice agent, you risk not surfacing that ever if you just leave it running.
Yeah. And I mean, like the problem you just pointed out is you end up, these projects are so dynamic and customers are so dynamic, and you can't think in terms of interactions that are happening in the world today in terms of just like rudimentary data structures. So if you spend time like trying to build up a data taxonomy, over some of the data taxonomy behind that will be valuable because some things are consistent. But when you look at something like Smart Analyst, which then has the ability to make you think of building a taxonomy on your unstructured data over time, your call data, like you said, that's changing over time. Issues are coming up all the time that are more relevant. And if you were sitting there trying to think, I have to capture this in some sort of like very structured way, it's not going to be as valuable as digging into a tool like that. That is dynamic enough to really analyze.
And I've been really surprised. I mean, I've asked it in a bunch of projects, kind of like, if you could change one thing to make like the voice agent better, what would you do? And like it really tends to point to the right thing, or at least a good thing, right?
Make suggestions.
Do you have other examples that we could take a look at? Just interesting questions.
We probably could ask this of like just along the lines of what you said is, what are some automation opportunities? And this is really like what you had just pointed out, whereas you could start asking the Smart Analyst to make suggestions on the agent and how you could start to look for new areas where you could automate things. That's been super cool, and certainly Smart Analyst is thinking at this point in the same way it did about some of our more complicated queries. But now you're going to see stuff like how you could tune the SMS system, like how you could tune any elements of the agent. And we've had customers doing this, and it's broken down into things like certain level of high impact, medium impact. Once again, really giving you suggestions on places where you could go in and tune the agent. So it's really cool.
Yeah. What's next? What are you open to kind of?
No, I mean, one of the things we're really starting to think about here is automated scheduling. So we talked a little bit about our customers asking queries on a repeated basis. Through Smart Analyst, we're going to start to bring in the ideas of that. We're also going to bring in some of the dynamic reasoning. And also, as you can see in this capability, you're having sort of one single query with the Smart Analyst. We're now going to have multiple levels of queries where you can go back to queries that you would have as if you were chatting with, any agent tool or any other like friend or any other chat platform. So that's something that's also going to be coming in. We are going to be taking Smart Analyst out of beta, as you can tell here. It's in beta. We're going to be taking it out of beta in the coming month. And then you're going to have the ability to get access to even more robust data in here. And then a lot of the features I talked about just now, especially the one around having multiple queries.
Yeah, and I mean, it's fully multilingual. I've already used it with a few clients in completely different languages. What else?
That is quite a bit that we have coming in here.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest thing that you're going to see is the reasoning steps. And that is something that we will probably have another discussion about all the cool stuff that comes out of it.
How do you feel about giving people control over how long you can think?
How long? Well, I think there is an element of there is an element of a degree of control in these queries that we're continuing to provide more and more capability to our customers to go in there and do.
Yeah. I mean, it's like I found it fascinating, kind of like between you and Greg and kind of like everything you've been doing, just in terms of the different settings for it. You get quite a different experience with the outputs, and I'm totally for like GPT-5 style. Force you to decide what the best thing is.
Yes.
Even if it means that I don't get to like get 2-second answers versus longer. I found it fairly good at kind of like, if it's digging for a certain kind of call, it usually finds it quickly, right? And sometimes it takes longer. But if you're looking for something rare, I think that makes complete sense. And I found that to be really cool, because it shouldn't be like a uniform amount of time for simple things. Right?
No, and we did a more complicated query on this call. We did a couple more complicated queries. And we've done a lot of these, just like we're having this live podcast discussion. We've done a lot of live sessions with our customers, and you can see as they ask more complicated questions to the Smart Analyst, and more trust builds on the response. As
what
you
do
ask
people
more,
mostly look for when you looked at kind of like?
I think what we're seeing a lot right now is using it to dig into recent call trends, and some of the things you talked about at the beginning of us chatting, which is finding information can take a lot of time, and finding those call trends that are most recent to your agent, something that would have come up in the recent 24 hours, becomes that starting step to really make you want to dig into more elements of your project and your agent's data. So we've seen people start there, and then we've seen our customers really go from there and dig into volume around those trends, and then even improvement opportunities. That's been a big one that's come up where our customers are asking for improvement opportunities that are getting them to start to think of how they can self-serve.
I mean, I found like a few interesting things, right? One is, and I mean, there are other features like agent analysis for this, but kind of like digging out that, or Polyscore, right? Kind of like digging out into subset of calls that are highest risk. Because I think, especially in the early days of deploying a voice agent, when there's still a bit of a fear and trepidation, I think that customers like seeing all the calls that are bad. And then if they're bad and they see them and they realize that they're not actually that bad, and they know what they're doing about it, that's really good. But also, like, and for members of the audience who don't know, I mean, like, when you go into a contact center, you tend to see a lot of data all around. And I think when people are not working, especially kind of like the managers and stuff, like they are looking at it nonstop, and it's very addictive, right? But it's actually kind of like you sit there and you're kind of helpless. There's not much you can do or ask or double click. And I think with this, you just kind of go like, hey, what happened the last day? Or I've seen this, like, I've seen many examples of it. And I think, I've done it in a number of projects where I ask about a specific weird thing that I know sometimes happens. And it goes, I haven't found any calls with this. And then, like breathe a sigh of relief, like, okay, cool. None of that. Right?
We have seen that. We have seen that same thing where there will be a challenging call or a bad call, and at face value, you're thinking as a customer, okay, well, what does that mean? And you start digging, using Smart Analyst to dig more and more, and you gain more and more confidence in your project by the more and more data you surface from that starting point. That's really been something we've noticed with customers using. So we've had a lot of people just going in here, playing around with all sorts of different types of queries. I mean, we're excited to see the things that people use it for on a repeated basis. And one of the features I mentioned, as Nikola was asking me, was this idea of scheduling and getting repeated output of something you thought is something that's hugely on our radar from this. So.
Yeah, and as we said in the previous one, you're a data guy and analytics guy. I'm just a stochastic serb. So I think like the things that like I feel are often just needed in the launch, like in the first few days of something running on behalf of a company, is like, what's the worst thing happening? What's the best thing happening, right? Because the best thing happening builds like an organization's excitement about it. And I was in a different call today where like we're just our strategic projects, and I think in 3 of them there was like, we need a call for the board, right? And you hear these sentences like, boards are demanding that companies implement AI. And like, I was like, well, that's actually true, right? Because like through, probably like a collection of about 15 different things that we touched on. In 3 of them, like there's genuinely a board level request for a representative experience that they have with a voice agent. So I think that's where something like this just like ticks like the box in terms of like, you want a need for a certain kind of call, here it is, right?
Yeah.
But then also like, it's just the fast, like, I mean, this particular project with kind of like casino reservations, that's hard because it's not like hotel with like a clear inventory. It's much more complicated inventory with very complex rules on, comped rooms and kind of like requests, and like it's just a very rich product offering because Vegas casinos are humongous, right?
Yeah.
And I think there, the ability to kind of go, well, what happened there? At that point, was it a problem with availability, or did they want like more days or not? And you could just ask all that and find examples of it, but also just like that worst call, like what's the worst thing happening? And then when you find one, like, okay, you look at it and maybe it makes sense or not, but there's always that nagging feeling like, is this happening at a scale that is unacceptable? And that's just a really hard thing to know from deploying something with a lot of calls. So then the ability to ask and go like, I found 2 instances of it, and you see the one that you have found already and another one, then you're probably like, okay, like now I've like seen the universe of catastrophic outcomes, I've addressed it, and tomorrow I'm going to find new ones, right? But step by step, you actually then kind of like really build confidence in the solution you put in front of your customers.
Yeah, and I mean that's the value of our platform, right? We're giving you an opportunity in this platform to get that answer as quickly as you need, and then really use it to kind of drill into, well, how rampant is that? Or actually, it isn't. I've got a good sense just from using Smart Analyst and using the other tools that we provided here that I have a real sense of what's going on.
Yeah.
And I have a real sense of what's going on quickly with my customers, with my call center, with my business.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, if you have questions higher up in your organization for like what's the value in something, like you have answers pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. How long do you think before we have AI operating on top of this autonomously?
Oh boy, that's like the
Singularity.
that's the I think you're going to see more and more, especially in our space and our company and our offerings, like tools that are built on top of this to continuously self-improve and provide more and more automation for self-improvement. I think it all comes down also to humans want to be in the loop and should want to be in the loop.
Yeah.
And providing solutions that really keep a human in the loop have a lot of value, right?
Yeah.
Because and I think it's going to be that balance, right? I that's kind of me diplomatically not putting a date on your question, but like it is something where there is so much potential, but there is also that importance of keeping humans as part of the operations.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I think this is very interesting. I think, I won't say the next time around we'll show the fully, agentic self-improvement loop, but it's not that far off. But thank you for joining me. It was a pleasure.
Hey, it was a pleasure to have you in our New York office, and it was great to talk about Smart Analyst and show the level of detail behind it that we talked about in our last podcast episode. And I'm sure we'll go through some of the more exciting, not more exciting Smart Analyst, but some of the other exciting functionality that we have that does the same level of kind of insights, automation in the coming months.
Absolutely. And for everyone else, please like, share, subscribe. Thank you for being with us today, and we'll see you in the next one.